Hello guys, I'm playing Club Step right now. I got 54 on it. It's not fake, but I'm gonna try to get at least 70%. Okay. Nice. Okay, shit part. Bruh. 54 is past the shit part. Roblox. Should I play Philly silly? I gotta post in like another Roblox game. Let's react to his story.
Stop screaming!
I actually reacted to his story a lot. So let's start off with a clean start. His story. I heard most of them watch his story. Shorts. Let's watch the oldest short first. He hurt my dog.
A teenager tortured my dog for fun, then threatened to do it again. My dog had A teenager tortured my dog for fun, then threatened to do it again. My dog had gone missing for a few hours, and when I finally found him, he was standing outside another house in my neighborhood. He was covered in bruises, his eye was swollen shut, and blood was still dripping down his side. The teenager walked out and didn't apologize. He just told me to keep my dog on a leash, or he'd do it again. I rushed him to the vet, but he was too far gone. I had to put him down just to spare him the suffering. That dog was the only memory I had left of my late wife, Helen. So I called in a few favors and found out everything about this kid. His school, his job, his girlfriend. He was enrolled at a Catholic private school, and when I told them what he did, they expelled him within the week. His girlfriend was vegan and an animal lover, so convincing her to break up with him was easy. I sprinkled in a few lies, and she destroyed his car for revenge. Then my friends and I posed as customers at his job and filed complaints until his manager fired him on the spot. His life was gone within days, and as he was walking home after getting fired, I ran him over with my truck. A teenager tortured my dog for fun, then threatened to do...
Okay.
My client's ex-wife wanted full custody, and she had two weapons. Her 7-year-old son and 9-year-old daughter both claimed their father abused them, but not just spanking. When the investigators questioned them on record, the 7-year-old said his father dragged him into the garage by his hair, then locked him in there overnight in the freezing cold. One tear rolled down his cheek at the perfect moment. The 9-year-old testified that her father would lock the bedroom door, make her take off her clothes, and touch her while telling her it was their secret. It was the kind of abuse that puts you in prison for 20 years, and I knew we'd lose. He kept saying saying he was innocent. I nodded and took notes, but I didn't believe him. Until that night, I was reading through the interview transcripts at home. I got to the last page where the lawyer said, "We're done here," and the court reporter was packing up. Then I saw one final line she'd typed before closing her laptop. The 7-year-old turned to his mother in the hallway. "Did I hit my marks?" I stared at those 5 words. Did I hit my marks? Before law school, I spent 3 years in LA auditioning for commercials and bad sitcoms. I'd said that exact phrase on every set I ever worked. Why would a 7-year-old know that? I called my paralegal at midnight. "I need the mother's bank records, every transaction,
Why?
tonight." She called back 2 hours
Why do you
later.
need
"There's
the
someone
bank
named Deanna
transaction?
Reeves. She's been paid every week for 6 months." I
Okay.
typed the name into Google, and the first result made my chest tight. Acting coach, youth testimonial preparation. I grabbed my car
Acting
keys
coach?
and drove to the courthouse at 3 a.m. and pounded on the glass
At
door
3
until the
a.m.?
night clerk opened it. I shoved an emergency subpoena across his desk. "I need a judge's signature in 3 hours." At 6 a.m., a judge signed it, and within hours, she was sitting across from me and smiled. When I asked her what she does for work, she said, "I help children build confidence for difficult conversations." I slid a piece of paper across the table. "Conspiracy to commit fraud, child endangerment, 15 years in federal prison." Her smile disappeared. She picked up the paper and read it twice. When she looked up, her face was white. "The mother hired me," she whispered. "She gave me scripts, exact questions the kids would be asked. I taught them the answers, when to cry, where to pause, how to make it believable. So I told her to prove it." She rummaged through her bag and pulled out a silver thumb drive. "I record all my sessions for quality assurance so parents can review their child's progress. I was supposed to give this to the mother tomorrow. When I plugged it into my laptop, the video opened on a couch with the mother sitting between both kids. The 7-year-old was describing the garage when the mother held up her hand. "Stop. You said bedroom. It was the garage. Start over." The kid took a breath and started again. Same story. I clicked to the next video. The 9-year-old was crying through her testimony, real tears streaming down her face. When she finished, the mother jumped up, clapping. "Perfect. The judge will believe that." The custody hearing started in 15 minutes. I grabbed the thumb drive and ran, bursting through the courtroom doors right as the bailiff called the case. The judge glared at me. "You're late." I put my laptop on his bench. "Your Honor, I have new evidence." I pressed play. The mother's voice filled the courtroom. "Cry more. Sell it. Make them believe you're terrified. We can get ice cream after if you nail it." He watched for 30 seconds before slamming the laptop shut. The color drained from the mother's face so fast, she looked like a ghost. The judge's hand was shaking as he pointed at her. "Full custody to the father, effective immediately." My client's ex-wife wanted full custody.
Oh my God, full custody.
I never thought I'd see attempted murder at my school until I got put on lunch duty. Every single day I watched this tiny kid walk up and ask, "Does this have gluten? Is this dairy-free?" But every day the lunch ladies would get annoyed saying, "You'll be fine, kid. Just eat it." But I need to know. I could get hurt, and they'd shove a tray at him and move on to the next student. I stood closer the next lunch, but I overheard them saying, "Oh look, here comes Allergy Boy again." They laughed at them. "Maybe we should just give him dairy today and see what happens." I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but they smiled while they handed him his food. Then he took his first bite, and not even 20 seconds later, he dropped his fork and started running out of the cafeteria with his hands on his stomach. Everyone watched him and laughed, especially the lunch ladies. Did you see him choking though? This was pure evil. I immediately walked to the principal's office to tell him to fire them, but as soon as I finished telling him what I saw, he goes, "That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" He called them in, and as soon as he asked them, one of them put her hand on her chest and said, "What? We try so hard. It was an honest mistake." The principal turned to me. "See, it's just a misunderstanding. Perhaps you should focus on your own classroom." I left that office furious, but I made a promise to myself. This wasn't happening again. The next day, I positioned myself right next to the lunch line when he walked in. "Hey there, we're so sorry about yesterday, so we made you something completely safe today. We promise." They were performing for the whole cafeteria. "We made Thai noodles with our special sauce, totally safe." He thanked them and took his tray, and that's when it hit me. What was he even allergic to? So I quickly walked to the nurse's office to find his folder, and when I looked at it, I felt terrible. He was allergic to almost 25 things. No wonder he was so skinny. But then at the bottom it said, "Fatal, peanuts." Wait a second, they said Thai sauce. Thai sauce had peanuts in it. Then it hit me. They were trying to kill him. I instantly grabbed the EpiPen from the wall and ran to the cafeteria. But when I burst through the cafeteria doors, I saw a crowd of kids standing in a circle around one of the tables. Someone was screaming, "He can't breathe! Somebody help! Where's the EpiPen? There's no EpiPen! There isn't one in here!" But I had one. I dropped dropped to my knees beside him and uncapped the pen. His throat had completely closed. I didn't know how long he'd gone without air. I jammed the EpiPen into his thigh and held it there, counting the seconds, but he wasn't breathing. A girl was yelling, "Please save his life," but it should have worked by now. It was too late, and I looked at those lunch ladies. He told us he wanted it today. They were lying. I snapped, "You killed him. Prove it." But the girl was pointing to him. "Wait, you killed him, and now he can't expose you." I was about to grab her by the throat until I heard wheezing. I froze and saw him gasp back to life, and since he could now definitely tell the police what they did, they now stand in line for their prison lunch. I never thought I'd see attempted murder at my school until I got put on lunch duty. The school bully slammed his hands down on the table in front of me, and I knew my day. When I was 12, my mother sat me down and told me
March 30th.
she was probably going to die. She had congestive heart failure and didn't know how long she had left. Up to that point, I had been studying really hard and dreaming of being the first person in my family to graduate high school. But that went out the window. While other kids were studying and playing sports, I was learning police schedules so I could drive my mom to appointments without risking being stopped. For 6 years, I watched her get weaker, managing her medicine, helping her walk, and even feeding her. I worked 2 jobs to cover rent as well as her medical bills, barely managing to squeak my way into senior year. The only thing that kept me going was her slim chance of survival. Then one day while in class, I got a call from the hospital. "You need to come now." My mother was supposed to be home. I got in my car and drove over immediately. My mother was alive, but on tubes and looking very different from the woman I saw this morning. She said she had 3 weeks to live. She also admitted she'd known that she was going to die for a while and had been playing down her condition for the last few months. When I asked why, she used all her strength to open my elementary school notebook, because graduating high school wasn't just his dream. She pointed at 12-year-old me. Him graduating was my dream too. She closed the book and looked me in the eye. "And if you knew how bad I was, you would have fully neglected your grades." I didn't know what to say. The worst part was she was right. I'd already given up my cap and gown rental money a few months ago just to buy her another bottle of painkillers. I hugged her tight as I could without hurting her, and we cried like that until she fell asleep. That's when I emailed my principal, because even though my graduation was 3 months away, I just learned how much seeing it meant to Mom too, and I'd be damned if I didn't make her last wish come true. It took 7 days of preparation and organizing with the hospital team and hoping she wouldn't leave early. But 168 hours later, my principal and I walked into Mom's hospital room together. He was holding my diploma. The ceremony was happening here. My mother's face lit up with true, authentic joy for the first time in years. She cried. I walked over and hugged her, trying not to cry. But it turns out, Mom wasn't about to make holding back my tears easy. If only I knew what was coming. Right as the ceremony was about to begin, I felt something hit my arm. My mom was whispering into my ear to check the closet. She smiled like she knew something. I walked over and opened the closet and instantly started crying. A cap and gown, just like I dreamed about at 12. I pulled it out and turned to her, and she was crying happy tears. She used her last bit of strength to sit up and stand out of bed. The nurse nearby helped her walk over, and my mom hugged me. She told me she saw me giving up the cap and gown months ago, and sold that bottle of pills I got her right back. I put it on, and in my graduation attire, graduated right there in the hospital. My mom clapped the loudest. When I was 12, my mother sat me down and told me she was
Bro, one last wish. Okay,
The school bully slammed his hands down on the table in front of me, and I knew my day was about to get worse. I was just sitting down at my usual table in the cafeteria when I heard the dreaded sound of Leo's voice. His dad was the town mayor, and he could get away with murder. The teachers all turned a blind eye when they saw him hurting someone. He wasn't afraid to get physical with people, but lately, he has been targeting me. I jumped when he slammed his fist down on the table in front of me. Then he grabbed my tray of food and dumped the hot chili all over my head, smearing it into my hair. Instead of running off, I stood and faced him, anger filling me as I felt the chili seep through my clothing. It was disgusting and I was pissed. For once, he looked a little nervous as silence fell over the students in the cafeteria. "Aren't you going to run away?" he asked. I laughed coldly. "Someone needs to stand up to you," I snarled. Leo's eyes widened in surprise and he quickly stepped away from me. He turned and quickly walked out of the cafeteria. A moment later, he brought a teacher into the room just as a murmur began rising. A hush fell over the crowd again. "What is going on?" the teacher demanded. Leo had fake tears in his eyes as he pointed at at me with a shaky finger. "He was bullying me," he sobbed. "He took my lunch and then dumped it all over himself for some reason." It was such a ridiculous accusation that I couldn't help snorting. A scatter of laughter washed over the students. "Principal's office," he growled. "Now," I stared at him. "No," I said coldly. "Go!" The teacher snapped. "Before I have to call your parents." "Wait!" a girl at another table called suddenly. "I have the whole thing on video. If you don't do anything about Leo, I'll be posting the video to the internet and it will go viral." Leo instantly paled, and so did the teacher. "Delete the video," Leo said. The girl shook her head and smirked. "You're done, Leo." "My dad will kill me," Leo pleaded. I said, "Promise to stop the bullying, and you need some sort of consequence for all the stuff you've done in the past." The teacher sighed. "Let's go, Leo," he said. "Principal's office and I'll be calling your parents." He grabbed Leo's arm and dragged him out of the cafeteria. The girl came up to me with a sly smile and showed me her phone. I stared at the blank screen in confusion. She laughed. There was no video. The school bully slammed his hands down.
Ha ha.
Big room, 2 TVs, and 1 queen-size bed.
No video. Dang. Ha.
I manipulated my dad into doing exactly what I wanted. On my dad's 50th birthday, he decorated the entire living room to look like him and my mom's wedding day. "Your mom's been distant recently, so I want to surprise her with a proposal. Her smile is the only birthday present I need." When my mom finally walked in, she marched straight past my dad, who had his arms open for a hug and started eating like a raccoon. "Mom, did you even get Dad anything?" She laughed. "Get him anything for what?" I looked over, and my dad was broken. I followed him out towards the hallway. "How long are you gonna keep pretending this is okay?" He just stared at the floor with a dish towel over his shoulder. "Your mother's not a bad person. She just shows love differently." I knew I had to do something to show my dad he can do better. So I left the house and knocked on my neighbor Vanessa's door. Some guy walked out buttoning his shirt, and she leaned against the door frame, still fixing her hair. "Who was that?" She smiled. "Just some guy that likes me." I knew she was perfect for my plan. So I asked, "Do you want to come over for dinner next week? As my girlfriend?" "Sure, I guess." As she slammed the door in my face, I smiled brighter than ever. When Vanessa came over a week later, she marched straight to the dinner table and started eating. My mom sat beside her and started eating too. My dad looked stunned. We sat down with them, and I grabbed Vanessa's hand. "I think I'm starting to fall in love with you." She didn't look up. "Thanks, I guess." My dad was even angrier than me. "My son just told you he loves you and you can't even put your fork down." "Relax, Dad. She just shows love differently." I looked back to Vanessa and slid a box across the table. "I got you something, my love. Can I open it later? I'm eating." I forced myself to tear up, and my dad stood up. "I've had enough of you. Get out." After seeing how similar Vanessa was to my mom, my dad finally filed for divorce from my mom. And a year later, on my dad's 51st birthday, his new girlfriend threw him a surprise party. I manipulated my dad. The school.
Was it worth it?
I cracked open my first can of the 100 energy drinks and clicked record on my camera, ready to break the Guinness World Record for no sleep of 11 days and 25 minutes. I had insomnia and figured it would be easy. The first 24 hours flew by and I posted how simple this was. But then 3 days in, I started seeing shadows, hearing voices, and my girlfriend's face suddenly distorted into creepy shapes. 6 days in, I had to buy more energy drinks and could feel stabbing pains in my heart. 192 hours in, I had to call a doctor friend on standby because there were only 2 ways this challenge was ending. Me at the finish line, or me at the morgue. 9 days in, I lived on the floor, hiding from the skinwalkers around me, who wanted to peel off my skin. Day 11, I was hooked up to an electroshock machine, so I'd stay awake. When the challenge was over, a doctor told me I'd permanently damaged my brain, reducing my IQ by 25 points. And when I emailed Guinness World Records, I got a reply saying they find my attempt admirable. But if I'd looked through their website, I would have seen they no longer recognize new attempts as official, as they don't want to encourage people destroying their health. I cracked open my first can of the 100 energy drinks.
Was it worth it? I don't know. No, I don't think it was.
A teenager
Let's do the latest. My parents wanted my sister to die.
I shot the 3-pointer and it swished, and my sister, who was rebounding for me, gripped her head. That's 20 in a row. Scouts will lose their minds. But then she went to pass me the ball and suddenly dropped to the floor. I ran over and grabbed her hand, but she wasn't breathing. At the hospital, they hooked her on tubes and told us her lungs had failed. She needed a transplant or she'd be dead in 7 days. Out of the whole family, I was the only match. "I'll do it. Take my lung." I raised my hand. They started prepping me, but my dad immediately stepped between us. "He's not doing it." He placed placed his hands on my shoulder. You're not giving your lungs to your sister. She's just a schoolgirl while you're going to the NBA. You need them more than her. We'll find another donor. I was shocked and looked at the doctor, but he shook his head. Since you're underage, we can't operate without a parent's signature. That night, Dad held up all my D1 scholarships letters. You can't throw this away. This family needs you. I told him this family needs Maya and walked past him into her room. I took her hand and watched her chest rise and fall slowly. You just gotta breathe for me. I'll do anything to make sure you breathe. Dad watched from outside and shook his head. The next morning, I dialed every transplant coordinator I could find online, but all 63 said I needed a parent's signature. Dad's hand landed on my shoulder. Don't worry, your mom's calling every hospital in the state looking for a donor right now. But when I looked over, she was playing Candy Crush on her phone. 2 days later, I was holding Maya's hand when her monitors started screaming. I panicked, and nurses instantly came sprinting down the hall, bumping into my dad and knocking him down on the way. I sat 5 feet away from my sister, watching them calling her oxygen numbers out loud while they dropped. The doctor called my parents in afterwards. We have hours to get a transplant, not days. Maya could die at any moment. My parents looked at each other, and my mom said, maybe it's time to think about funeral arrangements. I stood there in disbelief as my dad nodded and started talking about which funeral home was appropriate. I couldn't take it anymore and grabbed the consent form off the doctor. I shoved it into my dad's chest. Sign it. My dad went to shake his head, but I got in his face. Sign it, or I'm cutting you out of my life forever. You'll lose both me and Maya, and if I make the NBA, you're not getting a cent. My mom started crying, and my dad held the papers in his hands for a long time. Then he took the pen and signed. Doctors immediately prepped me, and I woke up after surgery with my chest wrapped and on fire. But Maya was in the bed beside mine, her chest rising on its own. Through the window, I could see my parents sitting in the hallway, heads down, but I didn't care. I reached out and took Maya's hand. Now me and Maya shoot threes out back again. I can't make 20 in a row anymore, but she's alive to rebound from me, and that's all that matters. I shot the three-pointer, and it swished, and my sister, who was rebounding,
nice. Popular. He tapped back.
My twin brother Chris and I were 9 when we learned Morse code. We tapped messages under the dinner table when Mom told us to stop talking and tapped through the wall between our bedrooms every night. When Chris got into a car accident and the doctor said he'd never wake up, I pulled up a chair next to his bed, took his hand, and tapped. Are you there? Nothing. But I came back the next afternoon and tapped again. Before I left, I always said the same thing. See you tomorrow, Chris. A week later, Chris's fingers twitched against mine, and I almost fell out of my chair. I grabbed a nurse and she barely looked up. They're reflexes. It doesn't mean anything. I bought a notebook the next day and started writing down every single one. 4 months in, Mom watched me scribbling and said, how long are you gonna keep doing this? Until he taps back. He's not gonna tap back. You're talking to a corpse. Dad lasted a few more months before he pulled me into the hallway. We need to talk about donating your brother's organs. His fingers move every time I hold his hand, Dad. The nurses said those are reflexes. Stop getting your hopes up, son. I don't care what the nurses say. You're not donating my brother's organs. But a week later, my parents called to have Chris transferred to a long-term facility to die and scheduled a meeting to sign the papers. The afternoon before the meeting, I tapped into his palm like always, but this time, something tapped back. Short, short, short. Long, long, long. Short, short, short. SOS. I grabbed his hand. Chris, if that's you, squeeze once. He squeezed so hard my knuckles cracked. I stormed into the meeting room and told them my brother just responded to me. The caseworker said, this is very common with families who aren't ready to let go. My parents nodded. I grabbed the transfer papers off the table. You're not signing anything until you come see for yourself. I walked them to Chris's bed and grabbed his hand. Ask him anything. The caseworker asked what year it was. Chris squeezed out the answer. Count to 5. 5 perfect squeezes. His mother's name, tapped out letter by letter. By the 10th question, she said, he's still alive. We can't move him. Weeks later, I asked Chris what kept him fighting when everyone gave up. Heard Mom call me a corpse. Heard Dad say donate my organs. Heard all of them leave, except you. I asked why. I wanted to see you too. My twin brother Chris and I were 9 when we... The second my mom pulled up to my school, I saw she was mad. And as soon as I opened the car door, she held up my report card. Are you kidding me? Not a single A on here. I tried to tell her I was sorry. I tried my best. She threw it at me. Maybe if you didn't stay up all night tapping that dumb secret code on your brother's wall, you'd actually be able to focus. I felt my heart beating. I pulled out my phone to text my brother. Mom's really mad. I think she might, but she grabbed it from my hand. Always on this stupid phone too. I could see her face turning red. But when I looked forward, "Mom, watch out." She saw the car too and screamed. It smashed right into us. Glass was everywhere, and I hit my head. I didn't know where I was. I tried to open my eyes, but nothing was moving. Then I heard someone, "Listen, kid, he's never gonna wake up." "No, please, he has to." It was my brother. I tried moving my hands, screaming. Nothing worked. But then, someone tapped my hand. I instantly recognized it. "Chris, are you there?" I squeezed my hand as hard as I could, but it didn't move. But he stood up. "See you tomorrow, Chris." I felt a tear roll down my cheek. Someone else came in. "We should just pull the plug. I'm not paying for a vegetable. We'll get more money from donating anyways." It was my mom. She was talking about selling me, but I was still here. Jake came back, tapping about his day. I knew I had to warn him. I squeezed my arm. It felt like concrete. "Please, anything. They'll kill me." Then it twitched. He gasped. He ran out to grab them. "That's just a reflex." "No, it's him. You're talking to a corpse." That night, I heard my mom. "He's gone. We need to pull the plug." I tried to move. Then, my shoulder twitched. My dad screamed. He moved." They were silent. "If he wakes up, we get nothing. We need to get that paperwork signed." They ran out, and I knew I didn't have long. I felt someone tap my hand again. "Chris, please wake up. They're gonna kill you." I squeezed. I needed a miracle. Then, my fingers moved. I said the first thing I thought of. SOS. "Chris, I knew it." He instantly ran out of the room. "Guys, he's awake. He's awake." They rushed in. I squeezed their hands. They saw it all. I heard my mom. "He's still alive. We can't move him." But I knew what she said. That night, I tapped it all out to my brother as he wrote it down. He couldn't believe it. Then, when I finally opened my eyes, they gasped. My mom hugged me. "Honey, you're alive." But I didn't hug her back. The doors opened behind them, and when the cops walked in, my parents looked nervous. "What's going on? Can we help you?" They were pissed. They slammed them both in handcuffs, and when they looked, Jake was holding up everything I said. I could barely move my arm, but used all my strength to raise my hand, then my middle finger. The second my mom pulled up to my school, I saw she was mad. My twin brother Chris and I were 9 when we learned Morse code. We tapped messages under the dinner table when Mom told us to stop talking and tapped through the wall between our bedrooms every night. When Chris got into a car accident and every time we heard a knock on the
Okay, Captain
The flight attendant slipped me a napkin that said, "The pilot isn't who he says he is. Meet me in the back to talk." I knew she chose to tell me because of the military dog tags around my neck. I folded the napkin and slid it into my pocket, and that's when the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Good morning, folks. This is Captain Hopkins, expecting smooth skies to Chicago." But something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. I waited 2 minutes and casually walked to the back, not knowing what to expect. The flight attendant was there with a man holding up a police badge. The man whispered, "I'm glad you're here. I'm an undercover cop." I knew something was wrong straight away. The flight attendant whispered, "I've flown with Captain Hopkins for 6 years. I don't exactly know what's wrong, but I know that's not Hopkins, and we're flying the wrong way." She showed me the flight map of where we were heading. The plane is heading toward an abandoned airport. I leaned over the map. My body was pumping with adrenaline because it was the perfect place to crash a plane. There's an empty space above the pilot's room. I can climb up and listen to what the pilot and co-pilot are planning through the ceiling. Take my number. If you can tell there's something fishy going on, text me one word, now. That's the signal to move. And to distract everyone while I climbed above the ceiling, the flight attendant made an announcement on the speakers to tell everyone to keep their seatbelts on. Through the cracks, I could hear 2 men in the pilot's room talking. 15 years ago today, our brother died because of Captain Hopkins. Now we get to crash his plane with him tied up on it while we impersonate him. I texted the undercover cop. Now, the cart slammed into the pilot's room door, and the cop kicked it open. I dropped through the ceiling and tackled the fake pilot out of his seat. The cop pinned the co-pilot to the floor. The flight attendant grabbed the radio. "Mayday, our pilot is gone. We need help landing right now." She looked at me. "Find Hopkins, the actual pilot. He has to be on this plane somewhere." I sprinted to the back of the plane, checking every door. I yanked open the closet next to the bathrooms, and Captain Hopkins was inside with his hands tied and tape across his mouth. I ripped the tape off. "Get me to the controls." He ran to the front and dropped into the pilot's chair. He grabbed the wheel. "Tower, this is the real Captain Hopkins. I'm landing this plane." When we finally landed, the cops dragged the brothers off in handcuffs. The flight attendant came up to me in the aisle. I pulled the napkin out of my pocket and held it up. "You saved 200 lives with this." She smiled and took it back. The flight attendant slipped me a napkin that said,
Chester.
I knocked out the smallest, weakest kid in school. While I was bench pressing, he cracked my ribs with a 5-pound dumbbell and smiled. That was Chester. He was 4'11", 85 pounds, and was the worst bully I ever met. His two brothers were 6'6", 300 pounds of pure muscle. Nobody touched Chester because they were terrified of his big brothers. I told the teacher, but he never believed that Chester had the strength to actually hurt anyone. I walked around with 2 cracked ribs for 3 months and couldn't laugh without wincing. A week later, my history teacher stepped out. Chester whispered into my ear, "Have you ever felt a tiger's claw?" Then he stabbed a pencil an inch deep into my back. I bled out onto the floor and everyone gasped. I needed 7 stitches. My teacher asked the class if anyone saw it. Every single student looked away. Chester smiled again. He was loving this power. PE baseball. Chester slammed a metal bat across my knee. I limped for a month. I still feel it when it rains. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anyone. I knew I had to handle this myself. So I started kickboxing. 5 days a week for 6 months straight. I sparred with semi-pros. Got beaten up badly at first. Then slowly started landing shots and earned their respect. I stored every one of Chester's hits in the back of my mind. I had a college scholarship and couldn't afford to risk losing it. So I waited for the last day of school. I walked up to him and said, "Hey Chester, have you ever felt a tiger's claw?" He looked confused. Before he could say a word, I threw everything. Punches, kicks, elbows, and laid him out on the concrete, unconscious, bleeding out of his smug face. A crowd gathered and went completely silent. Then his two brothers pushed through the crowd and got in my face. "Try that shit on us. Go ahead, try it." I looked up at both of them and said, "You might kill me, but I'll take one of you with me to the grave. I swear it." They went quiet, glanced at each other, then walked away. For as big as they were, they had never actually been tested. Chester had 17 broken bones and ate through a straw for 4 months. No charges were pressed because even his own parents knew he had it coming. When I think about that day, I still get the warm and fuzzies. I knocked out the smallest, weakest kid in school.
Dang, bro. Oh my gosh.
The second my mom pulled up to my
Bye-bye. Okay, his story is the GOAT. I love him. Bye-bye. Best story teller.